Hey, welcome back, everybody. Craig Peterson here, WGAN Online. Craig Peterson. Well, that's with an O, Peterson.com. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We've had a great day. We've talked about what you can find online, a little bit of nostalgia over at the Internet Archive. We talked about reducing risk with data minimization. I told you how ransomware became a multi-billion-dollar industry, the changes that have recently happened with ransomware that really require you to make a change in what you're doing to stop becoming a victim. Well, how should you answer a non-technology related executive who asks you, how secure are we? And how do you answer that question to your family as well? Because we are all the Calvary, right? We're the people that our friends, family, our people from church, the business people, they all come to us. So I wanted to make sure we covered that. The next generation here of security metrics, how long does it take to harden your systems? And we've got a course coming up on that here in a couple of weeks and a bunch of tutorials to help you out. The company that we talked about, Clearview AI, very, very bad guys, frankly, very unethical. They just lost their entire database of faceprint buying clients to hackers. And then they brushed it off like it's no big thing. Hey, you know, everybody gets hacked nowadays. Man, talking about a company with no ethics at all. We talked about them. And then, of course, most recently, we just talked about business email compromise. We gave you a specific example here of Barbara Corcoran. She is one of the business moguls over on Shark Tank, and how she lost almost $400,000 in a scam, and what you can do to help protect yourself. And we gave away some actual clues here, exactly what the bad guys are doing to try and get that information, or get us to do that, right? What kind of information they're gathering about us. Well, I want to talk about Firefox here for a few minutes, the whole web browser thing. And this has to do with security. And this is an article over on welivesecurity.com that made me think about what is going on with Firefox and Mozilla. Now, if you've been on any of my training courses, you know the browser you absolutely should never use, ever, unless there is a gun to your head, and then it's okay, is Internet Explorer. Just one of the worst browsers ever. You know, it's just terrible. It's right up there with the original browser, the NCSA Mosaic. But at least it was changing the industry. Internet Explorer was just a huge security hole. I mean, crazy. The things that allowed programmers to do, and it was such an avenue for hacking. So you know that, right? Don't ever use Microsoft's Internet Explorer. And then they came out with the Edge browser, and they had problems with that. So now they've scrapped the Edge browser for the Edge browser. Yes, I said that. Microsoft, you know how it goes with them, right? I used to get so upset, and I just let it go. You know, they call their database server SQL Server, as though they invented SQL. That was, IBM invented it decades ago. But no, they took the copyright for it, okay? Ah, man. They've got their new PowerShell as though it's a new concept. Are you kidding me? We've been using shells in the computer business since forever, the 60s, certainly, in the Unix world. Anyhow, on and on and on and on. So they threw out their Edge browser, and they started to use Microsoft started to use Google's Chrome browser, Chromium, as the base for the new Edge browser. And there's still some problems with it. We're having some problems with the Edge browser at a couple of our customer sites, particularly dealing with updates and getting it to update properly. I don't know if any of you guys are having that problem. It's interesting because the machines that have regular Windows 10 on them, that were factory installed Windows 10 and then cleaned up afterwards. Those are the ones that are having trouble updating the Edge browser. And the machines that are using an image that we built from scratch, which is what we normally like to do for our customers, is working just fine, getting the updates just fine. So if you're having issues, let me know. I'd love to know about it with the Edge browser. But the next, down near the bottom of the list here, is Google's Chrome. Now, Chrome is actually quite secure, generally speaking. There's some extensions that you really, really want to use with any browser, including Chrome, and we'll be covering them starting next week, absolutely guaranteed. Keep an eye on your email box, because free tutorials, I'm not selling you, I'm not upselling you, blah, blah, right? On some of these extensions you're going to want to use. But the biggest problem I have with Chrome is that Google is trying to collect all of the information in the world and sell it to the highest bidder. Okay, that's the biggest problem I have with Chrome. And then I use either Firefox or Opera. Those are my two go-to browsers for the most part. Firefox has been very, very good. And if you're a Facebook user, Firefox has some amazing features. Firefox does something called fencing on Facebook, so that Facebook cannot look at the other tabs that you have on your machine. It cannot look at the cookies that are set by other sites on your machine. It puts a fence up around Facebook's website, which is fantastic, right? Good for you. And Firefox, probably the best browser out there when it comes to using this type of fencing technology for our friends over at Facebook. Opera is known to be very fast. That's kind of their claim to fame. They too have adopted Google's Chromium base, but they've done a lot of good stuff on top of it. So those are the two I've been recommending. I've talked about them as well pretty frequently for basically a few years now, that those are the two you want to use. Well, Firefox is now turning on something called DNS over HTTPS, and it's turning it on by default for US users. And I want the Cavalry to be aware of this. The Cavalry is you guys, it's everybody that people come running to when there's a problem. Okay, so I want you guys to be aware of this, because this breaks security systems. Now, you might stop and say, well, wait a minute. In fact, my wife did. What do you mean, Craig? This is contradictory. You're usually saying the opposite. HTTPS, as you know, is the secure sockets version of web browsing online. It's based on TLS, it's SSL, right? All of these things it is. It's security. And the thinking behind this, which is short name is DoH, which is DNS over HTTPS. The thinking behind this is, hey, when you're at home and you are going to a website, and that website, of course, you have to turn the name into an IP address, because you're not going to remember the IP address. So you're going to ask your internet service provider, what's the IP address for this? Or maybe you're going to ask a third party for the conversion of the name to an IP address. When you ask that, it is sent in the clear. And it is possible for it to be intercepted. And some not great ISPs do intercept it. Now, it isn't necessarily nefarious. Some of them intercept it so that they can kind of insert their own little crap into it. And, some of them play those types of games, which I totally disagree with. But it's not necessarily nefarious. So the idea is, if they use encryption to make that DNS request to a DNS server, then that problem goes away, because no one in the middle can sit there and watch your DNS requests to know where you're going online. And they can't muck with them either, right? That's the other side of this idea. So here's what you guys in the Cavalry need to know. And that is, if it is encrypting DNS by default, which Firefox is starting to do, that means that we cannot any longer use third-party DNS services without making some configuration changes on our users' computers, whether it's a family, whether it's a business, whatever it might be. So coming up here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be having a webinar on how to use particular DNS services in order to stop the spread of ransomware, hackers, and everything else. Right? I'm going to walk you through what the strategy is, what are the tactics behind that, how are you going to do that, why you should do that. And this type of thing that Firefox is going to do is very much a double-edged sword. There is no privacy that's actually added by DNS over HTTPS. Okay? Absolutely none. It's a lie that the proponents are trying to tell to cover up the real motives. The DNS over TLS offers the same privacy. They both rely on TLS, basically, here, right? But it can have amazingly negative implications for security. Because how do you now identify malware communicating? Because it can masquerade as regular HTTPS traffic on the networks. So there are multiple ways to deal with the changes. I'm going to have to add this into my course coming up because this is going to be a bit of a big deal. So when we're talking about these DNS services that you can use, the free ones and the paid ones, and I'm going to show you how to use them in order to really help you secure dramatically, right? And the free ones, great for a small office, home office, or families. I'll tell you how to do all of that. But this is a problem, and I'm a little concerned. I'm a little disappointed by your friends over at Mozilla for doing this. Mixed feelings again. But because you're the Calvary, I thought you needed to know. And so I am telling you right now. So that's a wrap up for today's show. I want to encourage everyone, if you do not get my Saturday morning newsletter, that you sign up for it right away, because in that I have links to these articles and other articles that you need to know about, some of the security patches as they come out, the most important ones you have to install, I tell you about. I give you links to install them. I give you everything you need, and that's all for free. And you can get that by just going to craigpeterson.com/subscribe. You'll also find out about the tutorials I have coming up, some of the training that we have, the implementation calls and guides that we're going to be doing. We got playbooks. We got so much cool stuff to help you guys out. This is part of my give back, and frankly, I think this is going to be the turning point for your security in business and at home. craigpeterson.com/subscribe, listening on WGAN.